Thank you, Etler. And with that, just plain hot potato, I'm going to pass it over to Kay to start their wonderful workshop.
Hi. Thank you all for being here. It's so good to see um, familiar and unfamiliar faces here. And I'm excited to talk about my favorite things, which are poetry and desire and the elegy and um, yeah, um, and tension. Um, I kind of want to start with just a little overview of what I'm going to talk about and ask you to talk about in your own um, drafts and in your own um, just writing process to yourself. Um, and I'm pulling it up right now. All right. Yeah. So this little workshop I'm doing right now is like a part of some poetics that I've been writing up called Elegy and Ecstasy. And it's just a poetics of queer desire. Um, and it comes from the idea or the argument that all poetry is elegy. I've heard that argued many times before. Um, who knows if we need to say that with certainty or if that's true or if that's even important. Um, but I will point out that, like, in her essay on theme, Mary Ruefle wrote that if there's one theme of all poetry, it's mutability. And I believe that the elegy centers desire and that poetry by queer authors has distinctly pushed that genre as one that can synthesize grief and eros. Um, Poems from David Wojnarowicz and Richard Seiken are such examples. And Cameron Awkward Rich, Dinesh Smith, and others have advanced the anti-elegy genre, challenging desire for the dead's presence from a landscape that rejected the dead. And plenty of contemporary queer poets attempt to celebrate ecstatic pleasure of the body and physical contact without calling attention to the wound. Other poets give the wound sunlight through imagery and epiphany, or they simply name it. In his book, 100 Lovers, Richie Hoffman writes, "Once in a moment, I thought I wanted to die of his pleasure, but that was a wound speaking." Such naming does more than provide momentary tension. It enters the erotic poem as both a surprise and an acknowledgement that, for the queer speaker, joy and grief are often experienced inches away. This idea is at the center of my poetics in my book of elegies, short film starring my beloved's Red Bronco, and my manuscript about queer desire and sex. The experience of want, however pleasurable, is a body's signal of discomfort. The discomfort exists so that one goes after the desired object. The queer experience is historically a complication of that discomfort, adding to its intensity. If grief and joy are inches away, how can desire travel between the two in our poems? How does it hold the two together? So I think queer poetry doesn't answer these questions, obviously, but it explores them with unrelenting fixation. And I want us to do that here. Um, and I'm going to share a little poem, a poem that is from a book, from Richie Hoffman's book, that is seemingly about, just traveling both geographically and through lovers, and does celebrate queer desire and sex. And there is a lot of pleasure for pleasure's sake, desire for desire's sake. A lot of what we want from queer poetry, or what I've been hearing. Oh, can y'all not hear me? I'm so sorry.
I can hear you okay.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I think I can. Everyone can hear me okay, except Marina. Okay. I can try to talk louder. I'm sorry. I'm going to share my screen so you can read along with this, this little poem. And let's see. Everyone see that? Okay. Let me make it a little big. Okay. So I think this is a French word. The title of this is a French word for the color red. And red things appear in the poem like poppies. All right. I will just do a tiny little close reading on this poem so you can see, if you can already, some of the techniques around tension that and contrast that Richie's using. So this is the opening poem of his book, 100 Lovers. And the first line, I pretend to be asleep when he leaves, zooms in on action, on touch, and memory. And it then follows the speaker on a train that puts distance between him and the lover. Passing through suburbs, poverty, dilapidated buildings so close to destruction from within, poppies in full sun, the blurring jaws, the violet graffiti, then nothing. Here we have cinematic movement that allows the reader to register concretely the space between the lover. Concretely the space, right? He's not saying there's distance between us. He's putting actual concrete things between him and the lover. He then brings a relic of the lover close to the speaker. Dirty clothes packed above me, the t-shirt that carries his smell, the weak black pepper of him, the t-shirt he wiped his penis with. The speaker doesn't need to open the bag and touch the shirt. His bodily awareness of it allows the reader to watch it move with him, further pressurizing that tension of close and far away. The poem ends, I'm afraid to fall asleep because I will desire him in my sleep. The words afraid and will are a stunning entanglement here. The speaker fears not the hypothetical, but the certain. For most people, death elicits a similar response. By ending the poem here, Hoffman's depiction of Eros keeps moving past the final line. Any questions so far? Okay. After a little bit, I'm just going to stop reading from my notes. I'm having to just read from something I wrote down, or else I will just stare at you blankly the whole time. All right. I'm going to see if I can make this bigger. Can everyone see this okay? Okay. David Wojnarowicz's multimedia text, When I Put My Hands on Your Body, has a similar effect as it begins from the history of that body and moves the reader through a body's future death and decay, while also describing physical intimacy with that body. I'm going to leave this up for a little more discussion for y'all. Now that I did the work of close reading of the Richie Hoffman poem a little bit, I'll tell you a little bit about David Wojnarowicz. He was a multimedia artist who grew up working class and was born in the 50s and had a really rough childhood and became a sex worker in New York in his adolescence and moved to Paris for a little while, came back, did a lot of street graffiti art and was discovered in the East Village. And he was untrained. He didn't get an MFA in writing or art. His work has posthumously been shown at the Whitney. It's been on the cover of the U2 single, One. yeah, he's done a lot of really interesting stuff with art, and I think with poetry and memoir and writing. Um, he died of AIDS in 1992 at the age of 37. Um, and toward the end of his career, he was working at a really fast pace, um, kind of going against time in a way. And he's the one who, like, he wore the leather jacket. If I die of AIDS, um, don't bury me, throw my ashes in the lawn of the FDA. So he's also known for his activism and using his body as a literal text, both before and after he was diagnosed with AIDS. So this poem is called When I Put My Hands on Your Body. When I put my hands on your body, on your flesh, I feel the history of that body, not just the beginning of its forming in that distant lake, but all the way beyond its ending. I feel the warmth and texture, and simultaneously, I feel the flesh unwrap from the layers of fat and disappear. I see the fat disappear from the muscle. I see the muscle disappearing from around the organs and detaching itself from the bones. I see the organs gradually fade into transparency, leaving a gleaming skeleton, gleaming like ivory that slowly resolves until it becomes dust. I am consumed in the sense of your weight, the way your flesh occupies momentary space, the fullness of it between my palms. I am amazed at how perfectly your body fits the curves of my hands. If I could attach our blood vessels so we could become each other, I would. If I could attach our blood vessels in order to anchor you to the earth to this present time, I would. If I could open your body and slip inside your skin and look out your eyes and forever have my lips fused with yours, I would. It makes me weep to feel the history of your flesh beneath my hands in a time of so much loss. It makes me weep to feel the movement of your flesh between my palms as you twist and turn over to one side and create a series of gestures that reach up around my neck to draw me nearer. All these memories will be lost in time like tears in the rain. Okay. So now that we've read the poem, can anyone find moments of contrast in this poem? A tension of seeming opposites between this emotion, that emotion, this place, that place, this time or that time.
Yeah, it kind of makes, sorry, it's like the unmaking of the body and then remaking of it. I think that's the major structural contrast that we have, and then not having a hold over the body that is so tactile and tangible, and it changing its medium and liquefying into tears and the rain.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah. Any other moments of contrast and seeming opposite?
In the chat, Willow pointed out that line 2, beginning of its forming, but all the way beyond its ending, that line offers a contrast, beginning and ending.
Yeah. What, for your reading, what is the desire of this poem?
The idea of losing the body and connecting with something uh, indescribable, which neither the contact with the skeleton nor the contact of blood vessels could achieve. And I think there's this repeated effort to get to some kind of a core contact where the binaries of or the separateness would dissolve, and they could be just one.
Yeah. So there's the reality that you're here and I'm here, and the desire for that, a different reality, a oneness. Is that what you're saying, sort of? Yeah. Very good, very good. Any other desires that you can see from this poem? And did it make you feel any desires in yourself?
I think there's a very clear anxiety here of not being able to get to where one wants to get. And you know, the sense of loss and impossibility in every gesture that is being attempted. And that kind of deep frustration, I suppose one can relate with when one is trying to get close to, this is desire. Of course, the entire construction of it is physical and tactile, but it's a primordial desire for fusion and dissolution of the boundaries of entities into another medium, which is not quite being captured in the poem, but is the unfulfilled desire of the poem.
Very good, very good. So like most postmodern elegies and also the anti-elegy, the fulfillment of the feeling that we want from it is, which is a different reality, right? Is off the page, or often the morning is off the page. Yeah, what we want to manifest from the poem can't exist on the page yet. Very good. Anything that this poem made you feel that you either didn't want to feel or that you needed access to feeling?
I'm thinking a lot as I read this poem about the role of archive, and how when I read this poem in particular, I think of like the desperation of HIV/AIDS, and also the sort of like, how to say, slippery nature of what it means to try to stop a body in time. I feel the tension of that here, a kind of a giving up and also a holding back. And it makes me feel, when I read it, a kind of urgency or a kind of hurriedness around my own understanding of what it is to like not have more of this. I don't know if that makes sense, but like that this feels rare to me. This kind of like physical, bodily, corporeal, almost archive or record keeping of that tension, a thing stopped in time that even those last lines, right, have sort of indicated can't stay. It makes me worried. This poem makes me worried.
Thank you, Meg. Since you're here, I will also mention, if you all want to do more diving into tension and desire in poems, this penultimate line, it makes me wait to feel the movement of your flesh between my palms as you twist and turn me over to one side and create a series of gestures to reach up around my neck to draw me near. I always think of Meg Dave's line from 10 a.m. You come to me as you backstroke into me. Sometimes I wake up thinking about that line. Anyway, Meg Day's here. Meg Day knows how to write desire, everyone. And all these memories will be lost in time like tears in the rain. I don't know.
Sorry.
What's going on?
I wanted to say that that the person, you know, that the detail is very visceral, in concrete all the way up to the last line, which is kind of abstract.
Yeah.
It's an abstract concept, and feeling the other and then wanting to fuse with them permanently. That is the desire, and exploring the other body in a very tactile way, but wanting to consume it, like, or to be meshed with it permanently. To me, that's like, well, it's the ultimate, isn't it? It's the ultimate desire, you know, to be, I guess, to love someone that much that you want to be inside them, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And when I read, yeah, so great. That's so great. And that always raises more questions for me when I read poems like this, of this level of intensity. It's like, it doesn't even matter if that's a healthy want. It's, or is that a healthy want to want to be inside someone else? But it's, for me, I just think, what can I be? What can we be? What can we be this tender to? And what can we allow ourselves to be this tender to? Yeah. Anything you might pick up from this poem for your own writing process?
Something I always appreciate is when the body is not written in a monolithic manner. So what I mean by that is the speaker is referencing muscle, and it's disappearing from around organs, and it's detaching itself from bones, and there's references of a skeleton, and like the layers of fat. That's something that I always try to endeavor to do in my own work, and this was just a reminder to like just keep doing that.
Thank you, Sarah. Sarah's our resident poet and X-ray tech, so she has a lot to write about the body. I'm gonna do an exercise soon that you probably will not like, Sarah, but we got to do it. We got to feel what we don't want to. I'll just move on to this little C.A. Conrad poem, and then we'll do a little exercise. This is from one of my other queer poet gods, C.A. Conrad, Sharking of the Birdcage. Was it to you, wanted us to say after you died, it's awful without you making sound exist. You said, ponder this, but none of us can remember. What now, dear? Please speak up. When quaking becomes zeal to open, nothing now but a medieval barking gargoyle. Whoever gave you the tambourine shall be sheriff of my tender zoo. I am not here. I am in the future, where I have always been. Please hurry back and forth to kiss me, my ghost. Now this poem might have a different register of intensity than Wojnarowicz's poem. But now that we've warmed up to looking for contrast, what can you see from this one? Any juxtaposition of seeming opposites and everything in between.
There's a lack of sound, and then there's the medieval barking gargoyle and the tambourine, and also you would think about the zoo being noisy.
Beautiful, Marina. Thank you. Any others?
There's a tension of time. There's a little bit of past, present, and future in the poem at the same time.
Very good. Very good.
There seems to be this kind of anachronistic reconciliation of anachronism somehow, to if possible, to meet in one time frame, and this kind of going backwards and forwards, and it's again like the previous poem. It seems to be dealing with the sure impossibility of capturing the experience that is so desired and desirable. And again, as one of us here pointed out, that that element of urgency, where it's like the gargoyle is possibly a portal, and the tambourine sound, which may be checked by the sheriff soon, and all the zoo noise would rise. So things have to be done here and now, before everything dissolves. There seems to be an imminent loss at hand.
Yeah, very good. Now that you say that, I'm seeing new things. Yeah, like it's almost like tenderness, a tender zoo, which those two words I would have never put together. It's almost like tenderness has to exist now, has to be now. I love that. Thank you so much. Okay, let's do a little fun exercise. Hopefully it's fun. I'm gonna do a little, maybe not. Yeah, stop sharing my screen. I'm gonna show you my face. And I can see all of your faces now. If we could just take about I don't know, 20 to 30 seconds to, if you're an overthinker, maybe don't close your eyes, but if you can slow down your mind a little bit, maybe close your eyes and take some deep diaphragmatic breaths. Breathe in 4 on the count of 4, and hold it maybe for 6 breaths if you're able, if you have the lung capacity. And breathe out for 8 counts, again, if you have the lung capacity. If you don't have the lung capacity, maybe find a part of your body that feels calm and either touch it or just extend your awareness to that. Yeah. Maybe try those breaths again a few more times. If you can find a calm place in your body where it is contacting your seat or the floor, or a wall, see if that calmness can spread a little further. There are plenty of not calm places in our bodies that we are probably holding tension with the calmness, but this is an opportunity to just kind of extend tenderness to our whole bodies. And if we want to keep our eyes closed, that's great. For this part of the exercise, I want us to ask, what are you most unwilling to feel? What are you most unwilling to feel right now? Does it have this feeling? Does it come up as a shape, a face, or a place? Does it want to take form as a room, or a person, an animal? fantastical being? Does it talk in a language that you can understand? Does it make noises you can understand verbally, but can understand the tone or mood? And if it doesn't come up with a form in your visual or concrete or sensory mind, that's okay as well. When you're ready, when you sat with this feeling, if you can sit with the feeling, use whatever that you write with, pen or paper, or voice notes, or typing into the screen. Come up with 3 to 6 questions to ask the feeling, the thing you're most unwilling to feel. As you're asking this part of yourself questions, does it have any questions for you? What are some things it might want to know? 3 to 6 questions. Questions for you or about how bewildering the world is, its place in the world. If this has already helped you start a draft, great, go ahead. If you're still in the questions, that's also great. Whatever this generates, is whatever it generates. This might be more comfortable for you, this phase of this little meditation / writing sesh. What do you want? What do you most desire? It's a seeming contrast to what we are most unwilling to feel. However, tension and poems often tell us that, they might not be so distinct within ourselves. They might seem unrelated too. And so it might be a generative exercise for you to put this thing that you're most unwilling to feel into poetic form alongside this feeling that you most want. Together. And if it's the thing you most want is external, like, I don't know, a new car, or you really want that new crush to text you back, or a really great job, anything related to our place in late capitalism that would give you safety. What is underneath that external one? The thing you want the most. Who is that for? Why do you want it? Is it a thing you've always wanted? Is this a pattern of one? What happens if you don't get it? What happens if you get it? So desire also ripe for interrogation. So interrogate what you most want. Ask that questions. 3 to 6 questions. If you're lucky, your questions might be lines of a poem or parts of lines of a poem. If you're also lucky, your questions might just lead to other questions or interrogations, or as we call in a neurodivergent world, hyperfixations. For some of us, that's the closest we can get to mindfulness. So, just give this internal space that I've hopefully not hurt you too much with. Plenty of tenderness as you're in this process. How is everyone? everyone still working? Wow. Okay. I'm glad everyone's working. I'm just gonna call in those of you who'd like to talk about it, those of you who are ready. What this process was like for you. What did you find about your, what did you find out about your interior abilities while writing poems or writing notes for poems? Or just how this felt in your body, what this experience was like in your body.
It's very challenging to make the body talk. It's, it's a trying experience. I felt myself veering away from the body again and again. which suggested that, there is a resistance against locating our body, our emotions and our experiences within the body. So as I wrote, before I knew it, I just lapsed into metaphor.
Hmm.
And this is a very probing and demanding exercise.
Yeah. I'm glad you could experience that discomfort and that you can see or notice what is happening as it happens, like lapsing into metaphor. You know, yeah, metaphor can be such an escape sometimes. It can really, I mean, there's so much debate in poetry about what metaphor is. And I often hear that lately I've just been thinking of every word as metaphor. And sometimes we use metaphor to get far away from something, or the image to obfuscate and provide decor to something really scary that we don't want to look at. And I think at its best, a metaphor can illuminate, right? And that's why I have us, think about or just let whatever shapes and forms surface as we were thinking about what we're most unwilling to feel. I think often the most powerful metaphors are simply our obsessions, what surfaces for us when either we're trying to resist something or move towards something. Yeah. Sarah, how are you feeling?
What's the saying? I'm going through it. What I noticed is the thing that I'm most unwilling to feel and the thing I most desire are actually exactly the same. So I guess that is tension with a capital T. And I was also thinking of like I forget who told me this. Somebody told me this, but like when you like when you do it in reverse, like say you're consulting tarot or something, or you're going to a spirit medium, like they can only reveal to you what you as an individual already know. Like they can't like it sometimes looks and sounds like they're pulling stuff out of the ether, but they're really not. They can only bring to the fore like stuff that's already inside of you. And that's what I definitely felt like with this exercise is, while it was super uncomfortable, nothing about it was mysterious. And that's kind of what sucks about this whole thing, because the things that we're often afraid to feel, they're things that we're actually very familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, yeah, we know this already, but we, and by we I mean I, still resist the discomfort and the confrontation.
Yeah, there's the knowing, and then there's the bodily knowing, as Aisha was saying. That is so hard to sit with sometimes. Dare, did you come up with some lines today?
No lines, but thank you so much for this exercise. One of the things that it's showing me, sort of like in poetics, is like how to use like the vessel of the poem to hold the beautiful and the terrible together by asking these questions from and like asking these questions from, like, I put fear down, so 3 to 6 questions for fear, and then questions from fear, and then what do I most desire, and how those are working together, and in a poem how to braid the answers to those questions, which I think the poems that you use to exemplify show us.
Good. Hope you can meet your deadline.
Thanks.
The does anyone want to share some of the questions they come up with? You don't have to share, like, I'm not asking anyone to be vulnerable with other people or other strangers. But do you want to share some of your questions?
I'll share one of my questions.
Okay.
This one I think I'm just gonna be letting this germinate for a while because I was kind of surprised by it. Why are you afraid of what you can no longer return to?
Oh, Sarah. So good.
Is it though? Is it good?
I mean, it's generative. It's generative. Yeah. Yeah, very good.
Sarah, could you please repeat the line?
Why are you afraid of what you can no longer return to?
It's beautiful.
Thanks.
I had things like what is your name? Where do you live? Why do you feel the way you do? What do you sound like? And how can I help you?
Very good. Very good. Any other ones?
I left off on how can you be sure your desire isn't another attempt to die?
Mm-hmm. Very good. And what if it is? What then? Yeah. Yeah. How can you be sure? That's inviting certainty. Yeah. So what happens if it if that certainty can't be relied on? Very good.
Can I share what I've written?
Yes, I would love to hear. Yeah, if you feel safe sharing what you've written.
I'm not sharing my questions.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, great.
Okay. For a moment, we were on the same side, impregnable, fortified, rejecting of else. Ridiculous magpies crashing against the screen, not knowing it was them on either side. One shone back, one had mercury coating, scraped into tiny bubbles down the gut, settled in the dark basin, gleaming embers turning color, texture, life, form. Serendipity or design, co-locating in a swaddle, rocked in a warm embrace, seething putrid bubbles, toil and trouble of the night mind, settling into the deep center of chaos. Infinitely split into a nano, now lost to a gasp, clasped around it. We fought the other side. We fought the other out.
Very lovely. Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I meant by metaphor. It is. Metaphor gives you the ability to work with it and to develop it and to leave what you are not wanting to work with.
Yeah, I do know.
Sorry.
No, you're preaching to a choir of metaphorists. Yeah. I'll be thinking about the magpies running into the class. Also, because I love magpies. That makes me sad in a good way. Love all the Corvids. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Marina, did you want to share something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I won't read my writing, but the exercise reminded me that for many years I've had this recurring dream where I come across this bird that's my bird, and I've forgotten to feed it, and the bird is starving, emaciated, and I quickly feed it and hope that it's not too late. Well, I had that dream a few weeks ago. This time there was another bird there, and it was a grey bird. So the other one's white, and this other one's grey. But this time, yes, they were hungry and starving, but I managed to find a safe place for them. And so when we were talking about this, when this feeling came up, it led me to think about that dream and how I feel like that dream is the first time I've ever found a safe place for these selves of mine, their inner self, you know. So I just want to find a way to write about it without getting too focused on the story about the birds, but use that to launch the writing. Because all I found that as I was trying to write something, I felt like it's not I think writing about the dream is not where I want to go with it. Yeah. But I've made notes now. It's fodder for the poem.
That's wonderful, Marina. Yeah, I think sometimes when we don't want to be too focused or narrowed on one image or one thing in a poem, if that's
Yeah.
what you actually want, it helps to triangulate it with something else, like an anecdote you heard in the news that you can't stop thinking about, or just any notes from what you've observed that day. I've heard from people who've taken Louise Glick's workshop to just write, that they were assigned to just write like 6 to 8 things that they saw that day, and just stay in what they saw, and the way that they wrote about what they saw, and the number of times they've thought about it since, tells them that that might be part of the new poem that they're trying to triangulate some things with.
Mhm.
I think the goal of this exercise for me is, one of the many goals for this exercise, that it can generate a lot. But I keep seeing on social media people saying like, I have no ideas for a poem today. And I just think our ideas are within ourselves so much. I mean, we have so much within ourselves that we are wrestling with day after day, and that really want attention. And I think that's why so many of us write in the first place, right? And so many of like what we want to write about is exactly what you're saying, Marina, is that we dream about these things and we wake up thinking about these dreams for a long time. Yeah, I think that's really generative.
Yeah.
Or to at least start from the place that you dream from, you know.
Yeah.
That isn't afraid to think about these things in imaginative ways.
Yeah. I mean, it was connected because the bird I worked out years ago represented my inner self that I'm ignoring and not nurturing. It's a lack of nurturing that came up, you know. So, like you said, I don't have to focus on the actual dream. And like, yeah, that's good tips for turning that poem. Oh, hello. Turning the poem into something that's more or less like a dream analysis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Any really good therapist will tell you whatever you're dreaming about has something to do with you, represent some projection of yourself.
Yeah.
Very good. Anyone else want to share? How are we on time, CD?
We're good. Getting close to wrapping up here, but if anybody wants to share one more thing, we can always do that.
So may
I think you're muted, Nisha.
Yeah, so where does the idea of this exercise come from? It's a
Um,
meaningful and deep exercise. Yeah.
Yeah, it comes from the idea of Quan meditation, which are often based in questions. One of the oldest ones. So Quan meditation is kind of to get you while you're staring at the wall in whatever Buddhist temple you're in, to kind of get you to arouse your curiosity. Um, so it's a different place than just being calm. It's like bringing up a feeling and being able to sit with it. And my teacher Wagyu, who I've acknowledged in my book, who's done a lot for my mindfulness, often would walk behind us at the temple that I would go to in Tallahassee and ask us these really old Quan questions like, who is dragging this corpse around? And they call it another name for it is the Huato, which it's supposed to cut through the energy of the Buddha and the Mara. Like it's supposed to be very sharp in getting you to pay attention, like a cat. In his metaphor, it's like a cat looking through the mouse hole, and you never let that mouse, out of your sight. It's sort of a constant interrogation of who the self is, what the self is. So who is dragging this corpse around is a really old one. And the Chinese and Zen version of it is what is it? A more Western version, which I don't know how you compare the two, because the cultures, the two different cultural ideas of the self are so different, right? The Western sort of enlightenment version is who am I? But Guagu, my teacher, likes to say, what is it? And what am I most unwilling to feel comes from this Jewish Buddhist convert, Tara Brach, who does these little Dharma talks online. You can look her up. She wrote this book called Radical Acceptance. She has this whole method and a way of being able to sit with your feelings and offer tenderness to them. And I wasn't able to write well. I wasn't able to find my voice until I started doing these things, until I started just inviting my discomfort for tea, as Tara and a lot of other Buddhists would say. Yeah, but that is not to promote one religion. That is just take what you like and leave the rest. Yeah, but that's where it comes from. It comes from turning, having not been able to write well until I went on these for me, these retreats that were like torture. I mean, they were very, very hard for me. And I almost wonder if I even have the ability to meditate, the way that I was asked to. But because they're so hard for me, is the reason that I need to keep trying. The closest I can get to that place of being fully present with myself is when I'm writing a poem. So I just combine the two. And I find that my students, my undergrads especially, are at first really upset by it. They leave class on the first day saying, I had a lot to do today. This is inconvenient. But undergrads now more than ever, and I hate that phrase, but I have noticed in my 40 years now more than ever are very more anxious than they've ever been. And it really helps them being able to just notice that they're feeling anxiety at first, and then while they're writing, so they can get some sort of I wouldn't say distance, but friendliness actually with their anxiety. And yeah, that was probably more than you wanted to know.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing this with us. Could you put the name of the book in the chat, please?
Yeah, I will. Does anyone need any other resources? I also have notes from like the arc of the elegy and the ode, if you want to see how long we've been putting those two kind of ideas together. It's been a long time. I can put those in the chat if you'd like as well. Okay. I see one head nod.
And as Kate does that, resources are always wonderful. So thank you for sharing those. Just as we get to the end here, thank you all for coming. We appreciate when folks come to our events. And this was wonderful and amazing. Thank you all for offering your presence here. I just wanted to plug our next event today, where Kay is going to be reading with us at 7 p.m. Central Time. So there's a link to that in the chat.